Hi everybody and welcome to Photomikes Garage. All right, it's another beautiful day as you can see, and so I should work on the Camaro again. Now I've already made a video on installing the rear disc brake kit from the Right Stuff, and I've basically got that installed, but that's not the end of it. Of course, when you install rear brakes, you've got to do some more work. So for example, the proportioning valve has to be changed at the very minimum in order to operate the rear disc brakes properly. In the stock system, rear drum brakes require to have a little bit of residual pressure in the rear lines as compared to the front disc brakes. And of course, now that we have rear disc brakes, you don't need that at all. So you've got to get a proper, if you can see here, a proper combination valve or distribution valve or whatever you want to call it. You got to get a different one there to operate the rear brakes. But I've got to do a lot more than that. This braking system is all from 1973. Pretty well. Different pads, different rotor, but the calipers are from 1973. The brake lines, the flexible brake lines are from 1973. All the metal lines are from 1973. The front all the way to the back. These are the original lines. You have a brake line plus you have evaporative lines, but basically the brake line comes right through here and connects right here to a new stainless steel line that then goes to my new lines for my rear. So all the lines have to be replaced. So that's what I'm going to talk about in this video on finishing up the job and also just redoing all the lines in my 1973 Camaro, because you've got to do it. If you have a car this old and you've had brake lines on since 1973, for safety, you basically have to replace them all. Okay, so basically I'm going to replace the entire system, and I'm going to replace it with basically stock replacement parts. I am going to have braided steel lines here instead of the rubber, so that's an upgrade, but I'm still going to use original style single piston cast calipers here, and the same size 11-inch discs. I might of course upgrade that in the future, but for now I just want to get the whole job done in a stock fashion. I've got a new master cylinder. Now this master cylinder was working, but there is a slight leak at the back, so I'm going to replace that. And the master cylinder I have is made for disc front, disc back, and a new proportioning valve, combination valve right here. I'll be installing that, plus all new lines for the front of the car, a new brake booster. Now the brake booster I think was working, but I think it's just a good idea to replace that. So basically everything's going to be new, so there's nothing to worry about in the braking system for the future. I'm also going to be replacing all the brake lines going all the way to the back of the car. In some cases the brake lines look like they're fine. In other cases, other places it looks like it's kind of rusty. I can't tell. It's just safer just to replace it. I do have one special problem with this car that you may or may not have as well. I have bolt-on frame connectors. As you can see right here, this black thing right where I'm shining, it's bolted on where the rear leaf springs bolt on, and it's also wedged in where the body mount is. And unfortunately, the brake lines go right underneath it, right there. So to take out the brake lines, I gotta take this guy out, and that's not gonna be easy. Okay, the first thing I'm gonna do is take out the brake fluid that's in my master cylinder right here, take out all the excess fluid, because once I undo these lines, you're gonna have a mess. And remember, brake fluid will attack your paint, so you gotta protect your paint with rags or whatever else you can find. So let's get that brake fluid out. Look at the junk that's left behind. Wow, that is so bad. Now I'm going to remove the entire brake booster, master cylinder, and some of these lines, and the proportioning valve, all in one unit, and take the whole thing out. So all I have to do is disconnect the brake line here that goes to the back of the car, and it's not coming out. So I'm probably going to cut this. Might as well cut it because I'm putting on new brake lines anyway, right? What I also did was I took out the whole inner fender. The whole inner fender so that I can reach this area where the brake lines come down between the inner fender and the firewall. And the brake line from the caliper, well, it just broke. It just broke right from there. You can see how everything is corroded. This was ready to break. A very slight movement, and it's rusted and broken. So this is why you gotta replace your old brake lines. You're gonna need an Allen wrench, a 3/8 Allen wrench. I start by undoing this bolt here and this bolt here. Okay, 2 bolts are out now. The caliper should come off. Man, this thing is heavy. All right, it's off. Right back there. I think you can see them. That's 1 and there's 2. I'm going to take off my windshield washer motor here. I think it's just being held on by 1, 2, 3 bolts. Once that's out of the way, then I can get a wrench in here to get access to those bolts. Okay, the brake master cylinder and the booster, everything is ready to come out. All 4 bolts at the back have been loosened. That took a lot of work. There is a clip on the push rod that goes into the brake master cylinder that has to be taken off on the inside of the car, underneath the dash. Got all my fenders covered. Let's lift it out. Yes! Okay, time to install the right front brake line. Okay, this end here is going to be attached to the proportioning valve. This end over here is going to be going to the right front brake caliper. Okay, so I've got the right front brake line kind of roughly installed. One clip in here, other clip is on here. And the bends are pretty accurate. Goes right over the frame rail up there and is pretty tight to the frame rail here up to there, and then it comes up right here. I'm not sure if the bends are quite correct. I'm going to have to wait till I get the actual brake booster installed with the proportioning valve to see how everything fits to there. But okay, you guys want to see a work of art? Let's take a look at this. Ooh, yes, yes. Oh yeah, look at that. This booster doesn't fit, and I've discovered the reason why. These holes are all perfectly square to each other, same distance from here to here, same distance here to here. But on my old booster, I don't know if you can see, but the distance from this hole to this hole is a lot less than the distance from this hole to this hole. This is a lot longer. This will have to be modified. That means that this hole down here, we're going to have to lengthen the hole downward. Yeah, that's a strange thing to find. I have no idea why GM would do that, just to cause frustration 50 years later. Okay, as you can see, I had to lengthen out the bottom left-hand side hole. So now it's going to fit, and it didn't take too much work, but I don't see why this was necessary. Right stuff, this is not right. Just got to tighten those 2 up. But the tough ones are on this side. Oh, man. Now, how tight should they be? They should be tight. Just about 2 grunts worth. Okay, 2 grunts worth. Okay, and next goes on the master cylinder itself, which is also really good looking. Another work of art, I'd say. Okay, underneath the Camaro. Now remember, I've got these subframe connectors which are in my way because the brake line, as well as the evaporative canister line, there are 2 lines together here. It comes down from the front, crosses over, and goes up the inside of the frame rail over to its connection at the rear axle. So this has to be removed because, as you can see, they're right in the way. And you can't bend the brake lines through here or do anything like that. That'll just wreck them. So basically, I've got to remove this. So this is bolted on. This is a bolt-on subframe connector bolted at the front with the main body mount and with the front of the rear leaf spring. With I've already got the 3 bolts removed here, 1, 2, and 3 inside there. But now I've got to drop the rear leaf spring and then hope that I can get the subframe connector to go down enough so I can slip in the brake line. So that's my plan right now. And so I've loosened off the bolts for the spring perch here, take off this plate, and then the whole leaf spring should come down enough for me to then get the subframe connector down and then get the brake line in. At least that's the plan. As you can see, success. I got the leaf spring off, undid the bolts right here, and she came right down. And the moment of truth, this is the subframe connector. Let's see if it'll move down. And it does. It does. Thank goodness for that. Okay, that moves. So we should be able to slip in our brake lines somehow. And because this will move down. You see there's a space there. There's a space. Okay, so that's one thing I was really worried about. Now, let's take off the brake lines going from the front to the back. Okay, as you can see, I've got the old line out. That's it right here. Old rusty line, and this is the new line, and they don't match at all. That's not even close. Now, I was just joking that it didn't seem to match, but actually I was right. It doesn't match. It's good. There's that little bend, straight back. There's where it goes underneath the frame over to the inside of the frame. It's got a little jump up, There we go. Oh, Houston, we have a problem. I'm missing a whole bunch of tube here. Okay, so I talked to my Summit Racing representative, very nice guy, and he explained to me, and now I know that they inadvertently put in a brake line, the front to back brake line, the 1024 instead of the 1025, which is this one. When you get your parts from Summit or anywhere, check the boxes right away to make sure you have all the right parts. I didn't do that. I waited months. I just let the box sit in the corner, which a lot of people do because, you know, they get the parts and then they work on the project months later, but that's not a good idea. You got to check right away, because otherwise if you wait more than 90 days, then you don't get a refund or a replacement. That's what happened to me. So no refund, no replacement. So what do I do now? Okay, I've made my decision. I'm going to, because I can't return this because I waited too long, I'm going to keep this front to rear brake line and just add another piece to bring it up to here and then connect to the differential. Okay, I basically got the brake line in. This is the first clamp. Now the bends are pretty close. And we come down to our next clip right here. And then next clip right here. I haven't tightened these yet, but I will. And then next clip right here. And then as you can see, it goes across from the outside to the inside of the frame rail. So now that I've got these in here, I can put the frame connector in, put the springs back in, and get everything back together. So we got new line. New line all the way up. All the way up to here. Up to here, and up to my brand new master cylinder and brake booster. There's my new combination valve right here, and everything is plumbed in, as you can see. You got your line going to the back, you got your line going to the master cylinder, another line to the front bowl, and this nice line here going to a stainless steel line, which is going to attach to my brand new calipers, brand new rotors. So that's next. I gotta say that it just looks beautiful all this brand new equipment. It's been fairly easy to do. It's something that anyone can do themselves. It's something, like I've said before, important to do on a car this old. And the first step in resto modding or in making your car better should be the brakes. Okay, so now the next step is to put on these incredibly beautiful rotors, slotted and drilled to go with the back. It's going to look fantastic. Plus, brand new red powder coated calipers. These calipers are a thing of absolute beauty. Fantastic. Okay, so the first thing to do is to pack the bearings. You've got the rear bearing that's going to fit in the back of the rotor right there. And you got a new seal to put in, and you got the front bearing. Now these have to be packed with high temperature wheel bearing grease. You can sort of work it in your palm and get the grease all into your bearing. And then once that's done, we put lots of grease in here, we put the bearing inside, then we put the retainer, the seal, the oil seal, the whole thing can go on the spindle. Now these are the original spindles from 1973. They're still in pretty good shape. What you want to look for is that most of the wear is on the bottom of the spindle. If you can feel something with your, if you can pick a line out with your fingernails on the bottom, then maybe it's time to replace your spindles. But on these ones, I cannot. These are good. So these are the original spindles, still good, from 1973. So I'm going to use them. So first thing to do is to pack the bearings. The first step is to wear gloves, of course, and to get the grease into your glove, and then you sort of push the bearing into the grease. And you keep working around, keep working until you have got the grease in every part of this bearing. You want to sort of push it in. Okay, once you've got that bearing thoroughly greased, we're going to put some grease on the inside of the rotor, right on the bearing surfaces. Right on the bearing surfaces, and also inside. You want to put some just inside. There's a little trough on the inside, so we put lots of grease in there. Lots of grease. And then we put our bearing in, and it will seat. There we go. Then I'm going to put more grease around the bearing. More grease. You want to buy a lot of grease. That's what I'm trying to say here. Actually, I think while I got the gloves all messed up, I'm going to do the front bearing as well. Again, put some grease in your palm and start pushing that bearing into the grease. Work it into the grease. Okay, so now it's time to put in your rear seal, and you want to grease that as well because it's got a little rubber lip. Maybe put some grease on the inside as well. Okay, so I'm going to use a rubber mallet, and I'm just going to tap this in. And when you get it down, you'll be able to hear a sound change. So that's definitely in there. Even the inside of the dust cap, you want to fill it full of grease. This will be like a grease reservoir, you might say. So basically, just when in doubt, fill it full of grease. The spindle. You guessed it. Grease up the spindle. Yeah. Everything gets grease. Now once your seal is in place, it's time to put the rotor on the spindle. Now, the next step is to put in the front bearing. There's a little slot on the spindle. It's got a little tab that fits into the slot. This is going to go right like that. Then we put our castle nut. Now what we're going to do is we're going to tighten this castle nut to make sure the bearings are fully seated into their races. And then we're going to back off the castle nut a little bit. And then the rest of that is really a matter of feel. This doesn't have to be very tight at all. Tighten the castle nut, and while you're doing that, keep the rotor moving. Now we're going to back this off. And we put in our cotter pin. All right. Come on. Come on now. Come on now. Okay. Now we'll get our bolts started. There we go. Get that started by hand first. And our upper bolt. Got to make sure that the pads, the hook is above the pin, the caliper pin. Now we'll use a 3/8 Allen to try and get these bolts tightened up. And we just tap on our dust cap. Chevrolet Camaro 70 through 81 Haynes Automotive Repair Manual. And let's see what they say. Bricks. Hey, caliper mounting bolts, 35 foot-pounds. Not too much. There we go. Of course, stuff from Right Stuff comes with all the right stuff. That includes these copper washers and also an extra bolt. So what you need is these two copper washers. You're going to have one on the inside and one on the outside. But first, let's take off my black protective tape. Copper washer goes on this side, and the other copper washer goes on this side. Like this, and then like this. And then you install it. Like that. These 2 points. It's got to go right between these two nubs. So the cable has to go between these two little protrusions. Oh my God, how many times? Okay. Cable's got to go between these two nubs here. So we want to push that down and start tightening.
35 foot-pounds.
All right, there you have it. The front rotors and calipers are done. Just look at that. Is that not just a thing of absolute beauty? Drilled and slotted rotors with powder-coated red calipers, which of course goes with the red car, and stainless steel braided hoses. Yes, I'm so excited. The car's almost done. Just got to button up a few odds and ends and this brake job is done. I tell you, I'm so happy to have this job almost done, and it looks fantastic. I tell you, I'm so unhappy. Let me tell you why. This is a brand new master cylinder and it's leaking from the rear seal right back here. I don't know why, but it's leaking. All the other connections that I've done, all my own connections, they're not leaking. They're all good, but it's leaking from the back. Okay, I decided to do a little investigating as to why my brand new master cylinder was leaking from the back here, which was very discouraging. So I took out the circlip that holds the whole piston in, and we can take the piston out. This is the piston for the first bowl. Take that out. You can see there's rubber seals right here that keeps the fluid inside the master cylinder. And rubber seal looks, it was okay. Don't know if you can see. Let's see if you can see. Okay, let's have a look inside. You can see there's scoring right there. There's scoring on the cylinder. This is a brand new master cylinder, so that's scored there, metal against metal. But look at this. Look at that. Can you see that? Look at that. It's a whole groove just worn right into it. Of course, this is junk. That's never going to seal. I don't know how that happened. Just poor quality. I don't know if I did that scoring when I was moving the pedal in and out trying to bleed the brakes, or if it came that way. All I know is that when I first put fluid in the rear float bowl, when I first put fluid in the rear bowl, it went down really quick, and I thought, oh, it's just going down through the lines. But that doesn't make sense because, of course, the lines were closed, so it shouldn't have really gone down. It was going down because it was already leaking at the very beginning. So this is, I hate to say it, these are AC Delco, but they're all made in China. I know, I'm saying the same thing everybody does. China. This master cylinder is junk. What should I do? Okay, so what I did is I ordered another master cylinder. It's very similar to the one that turned out to be no good. The only difference was that the back brakes reservoir is at the front and the front brake reservoir is at the back. It's like reverse from normal, and that made me concerned at first, but then I found out that later model Camaros actually use this system where the back is fed from the front reservoir, and it doesn't seem to make any difference which way it comes. But I did have to custom bend, as you can see here, the lines. I had to bend the original line a little bit to fit at the back, and I had to make a new line for the rear brakes. Everything's connected, everything's bolted down, and there's no leaks. The calipers have all been bled, all four corners, no leaks from any of my many multitude of connections. So that's a shocking thing in itself. It looks fantastic. I just got to get the car off the stands and go drive in the beautiful weather outside to see if my brakes are working good. All right, so that's how I did a upgrade of the brakes on my 1973 Camaro. Just a little upgrade in some ways and just replacement of mostly old corroded parts, which is what you should do if you have a car this old. All right, thanks for watching Photomikes Garage. I will see you next time. Ooh, look at those brakes. Look at those brakes. Ooh, they look so good. I can't wait to get out